where you come from, and how did you become like an entrepreneur?
Well, like most people, I wouldn't say exactly by accident, but definitely through a series of events that occurred. So I'm an interventional cardiologist. When I was a fellow, I was in a center where my research project was to develop a method for measuring blood flow in the arteries to the heart, and then to eventually use that in humans. And so I basically developed a Doppler catheter that measured blood flow in the heart blood vessels. And then I had to prove that it worked. So I developed an animal model. Of course, it didn't work. And then I went back and forth with some engineers. And eventually I got so tired of asking them to make modifications to the catheter that I just asked them to teach me how to make it, how to microsolder and all that. So I learned to work with small piezo crystals and I developed a catheter, and then just for fun, I put 2 sensors on it, which you would only do actually if you were making it yourself, not if you were asking somebody else, but it was just for fun. And it turned out that the one on the side of the catheter worked great, and the one at the end, which was what we've been concentrating on, didn't work. And so we moved the sensor to the side of the catheter. That worked. That got through the validation studies. And then at that point, we wanted to use it in humans. And this was in the mid 80s. So things weren't quite as tight from a regulation standpoint. So I called up the FDA, and this is pre-internet, by the way. And I said, do I need a IND, an investigational device exemption, to use this in humans? And this woman says to me, she says, well, if you think you need one, you definitely need one. And if you don't think you need one, you might. And so from that, you get paperwork, fill out all this paperwork. I send it in. I get 7 questions back. The first 6 were pretty technical. The 7th one is, you need to certify that this was done using good laboratory practices. And then there's a notation for the Code of Federal Regulations as to what that means. So I go to the law library, because again, pre-internet, look up this stuff, and we didn't do any of this stuff. And so, how am I going to answer that question? So I said, well, okay, we followed the spirit of GLP, and they took it. And then we began to do studies in humans. And I was in this small town, Iowa City, and we wanted to get this thing made commercially and approved. And the reality is, if you live in Iowa City, there is not a device manufacturing company in the world that wants to go to Iowa City, Iowa. And so basically I had 0 uptake. I moved to Minneapolis subsequently, and the device was licensed within 3 months. So what that taught me from an entrepreneurial standpoint was, first of all, how to go through the process. How do you get from idea to thing, the thing that you test? You learn the regulatory process in real life, not in a PowerPoint slide. And then you also learn about the importance of location and getting other people to be interested in, and the power of location for that. So that's how I kind of got involved as an entrepreneur. And then, I was in Minneapolis working as an interventional cardiologist, and we got done with the case, and there was just a lot of tubing on the table. I mean, just tons of tubing, and it was confusing. And I said, gosh, if we could just make the thing that you inject X-ray dye into the coronary arteries with, which is how you do an angiogram, and if you do an angioplasty or stent, you have to do this. If we could just make all this scattered up tubing into like a gas pump, where you would just basically push a button, the X-ray dye would come out, you stop the button, the machine would do all the valving and counting and all that stuff for you. And there was a guy next to us who was a salesman, and he says, you guys should start a company. And it was just that simple. And then light goes off, and a month later we started a company, and then, you got to learn, okay, so what is the thing? And there's always this period of probably 2 years, 3 years of what I call the Frankenstein, non-specific screwing around period, where you're just trying to figure out what it is. And that takes some time. And then you're trying to figure out what's the market for it. And also, patents, and how you search for patents and find out whether you really have a clear pathway. And then, so you have to learn what else is in the market, and then how are you going to sell it? You have to learn all that stuff. And then eventually you got to raise some money. So kind of by doing that, you learn as you go, to a certain extent. But the key is just to be very persistent when you're doing it.